Hi there, boys and girls. This is Phil Simborg from the Backgammon Learning Center, and I've got with me John O'Hagan. Say hello, John.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
So the reason we're here today is to talk about this interesting position that came up last week when I was in Montreal at the tournament. I was watching a couple of very good players play, and this position came up. And one of the players, the player on roll, was Red, was thinking about doubling, and I was thinking, wow, why would you think about doubling? Was he taking any time on this? This is a really simple position for me, and I know for money, and most of the times not double, but I know that because there's a score involved, and this illustrates why the score of match play and backgammon is so much more interesting and complex than money play. But at the score, I am alerted that there are some unusual things going on, and maybe it is a double. So I took a picture of it, and I was surprised to find out. I'm going to give you the answer because the quiz factor would tell most of you, for the fact that we're here, that this actually is a double, and it actually is a blunder if you don't double. But I wanted to go through the quick, simple reasoning really first, and then because I felt that I can't explain this well, anywhere near as well as my mentor and co-teacher from the Backgammon Learning Center, John O'Hagan, who I think he has proven is one of the best players in the world, but also one of the best at understanding and explaining the cube. So I'm going to have John go into the details. But let me just give you a quick overview of this position and my reasoning as a pretty good player, not at John's level. I always look at positions for money first, and of course I play a lot for money, and I know that this is not a double for money. In fact, I know it's a beaver because I know, and sure enough, it is a beaver. Red's not favored here. Every player should know instantly that Red hits blue 17 times out of 36, and 18 out of 36 is 50%, so Red's only going to hit blue a little less than half the time, and everybody knows that when blue gets missed those 19 times, blue's going to win the game every time because he can double. So in a money game, blue's a favorite. And by the way, this is very misleading. According to Extreme Gammon, it shows that Red is the favorite in this game. And the reason Red is the favorite, and by the way, John, jump in any time on this if you can help my explanation. But the reason it shows that Red is the favorite is because he's the favorite cubeless. That's assuming you played this game out to the very end and nobody used the cube. Red would win this game 55%. So why does he win it more than 47% when he hits? Well, first of all, if he doesn't hit 16 times, blue doesn't get by, and Red will get another shot. So you have to add those winning chances to it. But of course, in a money game, he doesn't get that other shot because he's so far down in the race that even if he missed with a double 5, which would be the highest racing number he could roll, blue is still winning by enough to where he would double and Red would pass. So this is a false number. The cubeless number doesn't tell us what the real equity is if we're using the cube in the game. And actually, John explained to me there's a quick way to see what the equity is using the cube, and that's down here. It says cube full equities, and it shows that if you don't double, which you should not, you have a minus equity. Red is the roller, and this is talking about Red's equity, a minus equity of close to 6%. So he's negative, and that's why this is a beaver. Now, why would you double this in a match? Let's go to the match score, and why is this a double at the match score? That gets to be a lot more confusing, and I thought to myself that there's a few players in the world that I know, John O'Hagan being one of them, and Mochi and Michi and Victor and Joe Russell and Steve Sachs, all these really top players over the board. They could understand the math. They would know to think about this double and would probably get it right. And I'm not even sure all of them would get it right, but I wanted to get John's explanation as to why this is a double at this score, and then we can talk about some other scores as well. So my very first question to you, I might be a little embarrassing, John, would you have caught this over the board? Would you have doubled this over the board?
Well, definitely maybe. The reason I say that is if I was really bearing down, thinking hard, and taking my time, and I would have come to the right conclusion that it's a double. But if, I had just been playing, I was kind of tired, I wasn't really bearing down, I could easily just roll the dice. So,
okay. So the
answer is definitely maybe.
The first suggestion I have for John and for everybody else who plays backgammon is what I teach everyone about the cube. In order to be good at the cube, you do have to understand take points, match equity, double points, those kinds of things. You have to study the basics. But the best thing that can help you not miss cubes and get things right over the board is before you roll the dice at the beginning of every game, stop and think of what's the score, what's going on, and is this the type of game that has some special situations. There are some scores where you're going to double very, very quickly, but only if there are gammon chances. For example, if you're losing 2 away, 4 away, you can flip the cube after the first roll if you roll the 4-2, made the point, and he splits. So there's some scores where you would double very, very quickly. There's other scores where you hardly ever double. You wouldn't double until the very end, and if you're a big favorite. So start before you start each game, and that would make you much more likely, even if you're John O'Hagan, you're going to be much less likely to miss a cube or to miss it, and you'll have a lot less to figure out at the time something comes up. Okay, John. So let's assume that this is the finals of Monte Carlo, and you've been there, and you're playing for the World Championship. You're going to be pretty alert. You're not going to miss cubes there. You're not going to be too tired. So let's assume you get this right. Why the hell is this a cube?
Okay. All right, so the first thing to notice is that this is almost a last roll of the game position. If you hit, you almost never lose, and if you fail to hit, it's double pass. So it's not totally a last roll of the game position because maybe 4 or 5% of the time you will hit and then go on to lose this game by...
Actually, I put that in as 3.5% according to XG.
Okay, so you will either somehow lose a long shot race, or you'll leave a shot during the bear off and get hit and lose. So you don't always win, but it's almost a last roll of the game position. So you therefore want to think about what is the minimum chance I need to double at this score? And the way you figure that out is risk divided by risk plus gain. So what do I mean by risk and gain? The risk from doubling is that when you double and you lose 2 points rather than 1. And the gain from doubling is that when you hit, you win 2 points rather than 1. And once in a while you even win a gammon, right? So you just, for the moment, just ignoring the slight gammon chances that Red has here, let's think about...
By the way, XG shows the gammon chances at around 4%.
4%, okay. So if you don't double and you lose this game, the score will be 4-away with 50% match-winning chances. If you do double and lose this game, you'll be trailing 4-away, 3-away. And by the way, the match-winning chances for the trailer at that score is 43%. 4-away, 3-away is 43. It's an easy way to remember it. So your risk from doubling is 7, the difference between 50 and 43. On the gain side, if you don't double and you win this game, you'll be ahead 3-away, 5-away, which is about 65%. If you do double and win this game, you'll be ahead 2-away, 5-away, which is about 74%. So the minimum doubling point is risk divided by risk plus gain, 7 divided by 7 plus 9, which is 7 over 16, which is about 43, 44%. Okay.
By the way, Extreme Gammon will show you this information. If you can't calculate or have a problem calculating it, in Extreme Gammon, first of all, you can bring up the match equity table, and you can see what John was saying as far as what is your match equity. But you can also go to Cube Information, and it will show you that your minimum doubling point at this score is actually about 40%.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is what John, pretty close to what John came up with in his head.
Well, yeah, I was saying assuming no gammon. So if you click on non-gammon adjusted, right. So if you click on non-gammon adjusted up there, it will make it 43%.
Yeah. You're exactly right. That's right. So when you take into account gammons, you can double a little bit.
Yeah, you know that you know that the true minimum doubling point is a shade lower than 43 or 44% because when you do hit, blue loses some gammons, right? First of all, even if you never pick up a second checker, you still win a couple gammons, 2 or 3%. But if you do pick up a second checker and close them both out, you have about 40% chance of a gammon. So, that can always happen. So anyway, so then you say, okay, so my minimum doubling point, assuming no gammons, is around 43, 44%. I hit 17 numbers.
Let me just add one thing. Let me add one thing there. What that means, the doubling point, it means that Extreme Gammon is telling us, and John is telling us, that you don't have to be a favorite. You could actually be a 60-40 underdog, about something close to 60-40 underdog, and it's right to give the cube. That would never be the case in a money game. It'd never be the case at even scores, unless it's, of course, maybe two away, or something like that. But that to me is an astounding concept that you can be doubling when you're not favored. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yes. Okay. So of the 17 games where you hit, just to keep it easy in terms of round numbers, let's say you win 16 and a half of those. Okay. So 16 and a half over 36 is over 43 or 44%. And plus, you win some gammons, so you definitely are in the doubling window. And therefore, this has almost all the characteristics of a last roll of the game position. So you should double.
Okay, there's another flag for me that tells me that this might be a double. And this is something that I've learned, again, from John. John and I worked up our own take point chart years ago after Extreme Gammon came out to try and simplify so that most people, including me and John, it's easier not to have to figure out your take points and double points over the board because it's just too much math and it's complicated and it's too much brain power to do every time. So I've memorized the take points, and I've noticed something very interesting. When my opponent is 5 away, my take point is generally lower at almost all scores. For example, if I'm 2 away and he's 5 away, my take point is around 17%. Most of the time, when I'm 2 away and my opponent is something else, my take point is closer to 21 or 22%. And the reason that this is interesting to me is it tells me it doesn't hurt me that much, assuming there's no gammons, for my opponent when he's 5 away to win 1 or 2 points. And the reason is a very practical reason. Whether he needs 3 or 4 points to win the match, he still has to win 2 more games or 1 more gammon with the cube turn at either of those scores. The only advantage he has by being 3 away instead of 4 away is that if he wins 1 point at a time, he gains equity. But he doesn't gain equity assuming the cube gets turned every time. And if you're good players, a lot of the times that's going to happen. There aren't that many times where people win 1 point. When you start getting down to the end, somebody's going to double, hopefully on time, and you haven't lost your market. So it's a real flag for me when my opponent is 5 away that my take point is lower, and that it doesn't hurt me that much to lose 2 or 1. So from a practical standpoint, if red doesn't double and loses 1 point, he isn't that much worse off than if he does double and misses and loses 2 points. So that's a practical flag for me at this score that would have maybe made me get this right over the board. Do you agree with all that, John? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is true. And also, I've noticed that any time when you double or you accept the opponent's double and you win the game, if that win brings you to either 2 away or Crawford, that seems to be a pretty large gain for your side, which lowers both your minimum doubling point and your take point when the opponent doubles you.
So there's a flag for both sides. Not only you don't lose that much when you lose, but you gain more when you win, if it works out well, by getting the 2 away or Crawford. It's obvious to me why you gain so much when you get to Crawford, and that's why the gammon value goes up so much. For example, at this score, the gammon at 5 away, the gammon value is 0.655. It gets higher if a gammon gets you to Crawford. So that was pretty obvious for me. We all know that if you get to Crawford, your opponent can't double for 1 game, and because of that rule, you have a bigger advantage at that score. I didn't realize until John gave me some lessons on this that a two-way you also gain a big advantage because you don't even have to double to win the game if you're doing well. You could easily become too good to double, and if your opponent doubles you and you win the game, you win the match. So there's a real advantage at two-way as well. That is a flag for you to double at this score. So I'm hoping that with this explanation, my layman's explanation and John's expert explanation, you are going to be more likely to study and know that at some of the scores, you need to be much more alert about doubling point and doubling windows and how you can double at earlier scores and how these things come into play. But even after I studied this and looked at it, before I called John and said, John, let's do a quick little video on this, it occurred to me that maybe there are other scores for this exact position, that it also might be a double even if you're leading. Now, if you're behind in the match, it's much easier to see why you need to gamble more and double. There's a lot of scores where if you were losing, you would certainly double this position because your double point is much, much lower because you need to gamble, to get ahead, and it doesn't cost you quite as much. And of course, there's other scores where that would be very wrong. But I was wondering, and I asked John, are there other scores where you're leading and you're ahead, besides this four-way, five-way score, that you might also be doubling? So, John, give us your thoughts on that.
Yes, there absolutely are. For example, you can make it two-way, four-way in favor of red.
So red has 3 points in a match to 5, and blue has 1 point. And that, by the way, you should always be thinking in terms of the away score. That's why I've set my extreme gammon to show the away score, and that's why over in a match, that's what I'm always thinking, and John is too. We don't care how many points you've scored, it's how many points you have to go. So you're saying this could be a double at two-away, four-away?
Yeah, and here's why. Let's say if you fail to hit, well, of course, if you double to 2, the opponent's going to accept. But let's say you roll some non-hitting number. What's going to happen? Blue will redouble and you'll have a big pass, right? Because your take point on a 4-cube is 50% at this score. So you have a huge pass. So therefore, when you think about the risk versus gain calculation I mentioned earlier, if you don't double and you lose this game, you'll be ahead two-way, three-way, which is about 60%. If you do double and lose, you will be 50%. Right? So the risk is 10. Okay? On the gain side, if you don't double and win this game, you're ahead Crawford 4-away, which is about 81, 82%. If you do double and win this game, you're 100. So you're risking 10 to gain about 18 or 19. So risk over risk plus gain is 10 over about 28 or 29. Okay. So
and sure enough, John is right. Extreme gammon shows that it would be a huge blunder. A blunder is 8%. This is 13% error not to double here at two-way, four-way. I think almost everybody would miss this cue. I know I would have.
And also the other thing to think about on this risk versus gain at this score is that when you do hit, as I said earlier, you don't automatically win. And at some point, blue, after being hit, will turn the cube to 4, and a small percentage of the time blue will go on to win this game and win the match. So when you do double and lose, the vast majority of the time, the score will just be two-away. But once in a while, you'll actually lose the whole match on this game. So the equity is not 50; it might be 49 or something like that. When your match-winning chance will be about 49 rather than 50.
All right. So let's check a couple things that John said. First of all, let's look at the doubling point at this score. Go to cube information, and again, non-gammon adjusted. Let's do gammon. Non-gammon adjusted, you double. It shows that red, who is winning, can double at a very low point, even though he's winning a little bit more than a third of the time. He's got a cube. I mean, this is what makes match play so interesting and exciting. Hitting non-gammon adjusted, it's still pretty close to one is even lower than it was at 4-away, 5-away. Let's show a couple of other things. John made a good point. If you hit and blue gets hit, I pointed out earlier that I ran this. I'm not a genius. I know it's about 3.5% that red will still lose this game, and sure enough, it is 3.15% at this particular score. But sometimes red will get another checker, which could be a double-edged sword, by the way. If he hits another checker, it gives blue a chance to anchor, and then he wins about 8% if he anchors. But most of the time, if he hits another checker, he doesn't anchor. You close the board, and his winning chances with 2 checkers up is really poor. So hitting another checker is generally very, very good for red. But most of the time, that's not going to happen. You just close the board, and then blue's winning chances are very, very low. Let's just see what they are. Assuming a perfect bear off, what is this? About 2.5%, 3% with one checker at 1.4%. So that's basically what's going to happen most of the time,
right.
And he wins. Okay, going back to the original position, which I have saved by hitting Control-C, Control-V, at 2-away, 4-away, I think most people would miss this cube. I know I would have without this lesson. And I've had this lesson before from you, so maybe I would have caught it. But what other scores would this be?
You could also look at 2-away, 3-away. There you are. Let's see, what's the risk versus the game?
2-away. Red is 2-away and blue is 3-away. Okay.
Yeah. So if you don't double and lose, you're 50. Do double and lose, 0. No, I take it back. If you don't hit, the opponent's going to redouble you out. So you're risking, you'll be about 32% if you pass the recube. So therefore, the risk is about 18. On the gain side, don't double and win, you're Crawford 3-away, which is 75. Do double and win, you're 100. So your gain is 25. So the minimum doubling point is 18 over 18 plus 25, which is 18 over 43, which I'd have to do the math on that. That's a bit over 40%. So it looks like, this one's just barely a redouble.
Just barely.
And by the way, I have an initial double.
I have another formula, and I learned this not from John, but I learned this from a couple of very, very top good players that I respect relative to the practical aspects. Anytime that I'm on the edge of maybe I should double or not, actually stick helped me a lot with this one. Anytime I'm on the edge where I think I might double, then I look at something. I look at other things. Who am I playing? If I'm playing Mochi or John O'Hagan, I'm going to double this because I want to gamble. when I've got a position like this, that there's no skill, very little skill involved in this game, and I want to gamble. If I'm playing someone worse than me, I don't want to gamble. Even though this says it's a double, it would be right not to. John O'Hagan should not double me in this position, but John probably should double Mochi or another strong player because it's right, because you gain some equity because of it. So when I'm on the edge, and the same thing's true about taking the cube. If I'm over the board and I think it's barely a take, or I'm not quite sure if it's a take or not, I then look at the opponent, and I also look at how difficult the position is to play. This is a position that any good player is going to play pretty well from here on out, and I'm not going to get a lot of equity out of the checker play. Any other scores where this might be a double jump?
Yeah. Now, there will be a lot of scores where you are way behind in the score, where it would be correct to double. So we'll put in red being 7-away and blue 3-away.
Okay, match the 7, and red has 0, and blue has 4.
4. Okay, so
7-away,
first of all,
okay,
just imagine that red's on roll and that he did not double, and give him some normal non-hitting number, like say a 4-1, for example.
Okay.
Okay, and now put blue on roll, cube action, and you'll see that it's double pass. Okay.
Yep.
Now let's say that move back red's position back to the original, and put red on roll, and let's say that he correctly doubles.
first of all, let's show that it's correct double. Let's see if Extreme Gammon agrees with you that it's correct double. Yes, it would be a huge blunder not to double.
Okay. So now put the cube over there, and again give red a 4-1 type number, and ask if blue should redouble.
Huge no redouble.
Huge no redouble. So that's another. There's a whole class of scores like this where if you don't offer the initial cube and you don't roll one of your jokers that hits, the opponent can double you out if the cube's in the center. But if the opponent owns the cube, he cannot redouble because your take point is so low, right?
So this points out what I said earlier. It was pretty obvious to me that when you're way behind or losing by that you should be gambling more, even though you're not 50%. But what really hit me is that this is a double at sometimes when you're winning. Are there any other scores?
Yeah. I'm sure there are other ones. Probably quite a few where if when you hit and win, that it'll get you to two-away or Crawford. Certainly a lot of those.
How about when you are two-away? When you hit, you win the match, and when you lose, you lose one more point because you're way ahead in the match. Seems like that might be a double too.
Yeah, well, we just looked at a couple of those: two-away, four-away, two-away, three-away.
Okay, so let's look at, for example, two-away, eight-away. You're winning. I'm sorry, red has to be winning.
The other way around.
The other way around. Let's give red two-away, eight-away. How much does it cost you to lose 1 or 2 points compared to winning the entire match?
Let's see. So 2-away, 7-away is what you have there.
Let's just run instead of going through the numbers. I don't want to look at this. It's not even a take. It's not even a take.
No,
I got
blue on roll here.
It matters who's on roll. That's something else we need to remember.
It does, yeah.
Yeah,
so
but again, it's a blunder not to double. A blunder not to double, because if you double and you hit and you win the match. If you lose, you lose 2 points instead of 1. It doesn't cost you that much equity compared to the equity that you gain by winning the match instead of just getting to Crawford and being one away.
Right.
So, okay, the bottom line, let's just sum this up. Match play is much more complicated than money play. You're going to miss this over the board. You're going to miss doubles over the board and takes over the board, even if you're John O'Hagan, unless you stay alert and get a good night's sleep and eat well and stay sharp. And also use the method that we teach at the Backgammon Learning Center of before the game starts. Think about what's going on, what might be different at this score, and how this might affect your cube action. And one of the other reasons why you think about this before the game starts is something else happens too. At different scores, you actually play your opening moves differently. We all know that at 2-away, 4-away, if you're losing, you should be playing as if you're going to be going for the gammon or playing gammon go. You play differently with a 5-1 and a 4-1 and a 3-2 and a 4-3. You go for the gammon. You start slotting. You start bringing checkers down. So your opening moves actually change. And if you're winning 2-away, 4-away, it's just the opposite. You're playing to save gammons or gammon save. But even at these other scores that aren't pure gammon go and gammon save scores, you do change even the opening roll. And even if you don't change the opening roll, you might change the second or third roll plays. So these thoughts about the score and what's going on differently at these scores are going to change your checker play and your cube action, and you're going to play a lot better and win a lot more by thinking about that. That requires some study, and it requires learning from, we have very, very good books, but there are very, very good teachers. I encourage you to go to the BackgammonLearningCenter.com, or it's also BackgammonLearningCenter.com, and take a look. You'll see we have 25 teachers, and we're all using the same material. Most of our cube information comes from the classic books, comes from Extreme Gammon, and a lot of work that John O'Hagan has put into it that he shared with all of our teachers through me and Perry. We've shared all these ideas and all this thinking and many, many shortcuts that John has come up with, and Stick and Dirk Schumann and Steve Sachs and Mochi, all of our great teachers have added to this material, and it's the fastest and best way to learn this. So now that's my ad. Any questions about this position or anything, send me an email, pjsimborg@gmail.com. John and I will be happy to answer your questions and give you any further information you might want relative to this. And if you're a money player, you've been playing backgammon for many years and you haven't played in any tournaments, you're really missing out on something. You're missing out on one of the most interesting and fun, intellectually stimulating exercises for your mind that you will ever have. So I encourage you to play match play and tournament backgammon. Anything further to add from you, John?
No, I think we've covered about everything.
Okay, great. John, thanks for your help. I will be seeing you at some upcoming tournaments. I'm in Jamaica right now on my way to Florida. I know John is going to be going to Minnesota. And, of course, we'll both be in Vegas and L.A., and I'll be in Cyprus. So we'll talk soon and see many of you live. Thank you very much, John, for doing this, and we will talk later. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right, Phil.